Welcome to Section 3, Show Me the Money, Revenue. We are going to review the revenue sources, where does it come from, and also briefly review what is entrepreneurship. So if you remember from the last section, revenue, how do I make money? Well, it's a few different ways. We discussed how you could sell your time and effort, and we call that being an employee. We discussed that you can rent out your money, and we call that an investment. Or also you could create a product for customers, and we call that entrepreneurship. Now, how else can you make money? There's two more ways. One, if you notice this in the project, if you were assigned this random element of the project, you could get a gift or an inheritance or something from the government, let's say, and that's a form of revenue that's not in one of the base three. Or the other option is you just take it. Saw this on Reddit once, I believe, or someone sent it to me. Anyway, good times. This is not recommended. Now, as far as government transfers go, that comes generally in the form of health insurance, food, housing assistance, unemployment insurance, and college assistance. Those are the primary forms that government transfers are received. But it's hard to explain, at least anything specific and enduring, in regards to these government benefits because they're constantly being tweaked or changed or adapted in some way. And so rather than go into a lot of specifics, which might not be true within 6 months or 12 months or 24 months, rather I would encourage you, if you find yourself in a situation where one of those are needed, that the website benefits.gov, on benefits.gov, they have the federal benefits. They also tend to explain state-specific benefits as well. So far more straightforward than whatever I would cover here, and would highly recommend using that route if you're looking to receive assistance in one of these areas. So as far as the structure of this section, employee we'll be covering in the next few parts, in the rest of this section. Investment is more to deal with assets, so that's over in section 6. And entrepreneurship we'll just briefly touch on today. So below I've provided links to a few different articles, a few different pieces of information about entrepreneurship. And the main thing that I want to do is demystify entrepreneurship and the myth of entrepreneurship failure, and also recognize that entrepreneurship is not just a 1 or 0, all or nothing type of thing. So 8 out of 10 businesses fail within the first 18 months is kind of the myth-ish. But what is a failure? So you could maybe mow lawns for a summer and then you stop mowing lawns at the end of the summer. Is that a business failure? If you do something as a side hobby, is it a business failure? If someone bought out your interest, is that a business failure? If you died or became disabled, is that a business failure? If you moved somewhere different, did you fail? If you were just exploring the market and you just made a business so you could spend a few $100s to check out the business, check out the industry to see if you wanted to do something and decided against it, is that a business failure? According to the statistics, all of these things are business failures, but they're not really failures. In reality, the word failure isn't the right word to lump the entire category of all businesses together. So in the articles, for example, what are the primary reasons for startup failure that's not one of people just exited for other reasons, but it actually failed? The reasons are people don't want it, you run out of money, you don't have the resources, the people to do it, or you just launched the product and it just wasn't quite as good as competitors. So how many businesses have you seen fail? You've probably seen restaurants or other things close around town, but most businesses aren't, retail facing that you would actually see if they succeeded or if they failed. Most of this is going on behind the scenes. But what you need to recognize if you're considering some form of entrepreneurship is to identify this distinguishing factor between businesses that succeed and fail. And what people do to help with this is that they create a business plan. And what does a business plan do? It identifies and confirms throughout the process of exploring the business plan that people actually want the product, that you have the physical resources to pull it off, to make the product and sell the product, and you have the right people so that you can also actually pull off creating this product and selling it. So if you have, people want it, and you have the resources in terms of physical and the manpower resources, the human capital resources to do it, then you're in a pretty good position to succeed. Now, like I said, it's not that all entrepreneurship is this exact same thing. There's varying levels of risk in the band and in the spectrum of entrepreneurship. So there are lots of examples of low-risk entrepreneurship and high-risk entrepreneurship. When people say entrepreneurship, they're imagining these billion-dollar companies that have been started in the last 20 years, when really it's a spectrum. Now, there's an employee who's not an entrepreneur really, but you could be an employee with maybe stock options or something like that in a smaller company, and there's elements of entrepreneurship going on there. You could be an independent contractor and actually be employed with multiple companies, selling your skills. You could buy into being a franchisee of something. You could acquire an existing business, or you could start up a business. And there's an entire range of startups. I mean, instead of just being an independent contractor, you could do a startup doing whatever you're doing as an independent contractor and maybe add 1 or 2 employees. So there's this entire range of, say, independent contractor all the way to raising venture capital funds in Silicon Valley to come up to create the next big tech startup. Well, there's this entire range there, and you don't need to be intimidated by the concept of entrepreneurship just because you have one concept of it in your head. Now, because of modern technology, entrepreneurship and employment is starting to blend together. It's getting harder to tell the difference between employment and entrepreneurship. And there's an article below, but we call this the gig economy. And what I want you to recognize in the article is recognize what has been instrumental in helping it expand recently, the technology that's occurred, and maybe consider what you can do to take advantage of the gig economy. Is this something that you want to participate in? Now, what does the gig economy consist of? I mean, it consists of doing things like driving for, say, Uber or Lyft. It could be renting out your home for Airbnb, to finding companies in the area where you're doing one-off jobs for them. So there will continue to be a lot of technological advancement in this area. It's a really cool thing to watch, and as far as watching it develop over the last 10 years or so, 10 to 15 years, has been really cool. But if you're interested in being an entrepreneur, this is kind of the minimum entrepreneur-ish thing that exists today, and it's relatively easy to do. So if it's something you're interested in just doing a little bit on your own, as far as with spare time, this is a good opportunity to take advantage of. As far as the stages of entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship is generally characterized in 4 stages, where 1, you identify the opportunities. What do customers want? Where are the needs? You then finish up that business plan by identifying how, where, and when can resources be acquired to implement that. So between 1 and 2, you've created the business plan, you have your ducks in a row. You then do that simple step of actually implementing that plan. No, it's not simple. But if you successfully execute on that, then you harvest that opportunity and monetize that value. So as you're working, you're either paying yourself or you're building this company and planning on selling it at a future point.